The desperate signal, the nutrient paste, had the consistency of wet concrete and probably tasted worse. Captain Marcus Holt scraped the bottom of the container, watching the amber slush float in zero gravity like some cosmic soup gone wrong. Outside, his cargo shuttle's viewport, the asteroid belt stretched endlessly, chunks of rock tumbling through space like frozen tears. His ship, the Wanderer, groaned as another vessel passed nearby. The sound reminded him of his grandfather's old truck. Back on Earth, always on the verge of breakdown but somehow still running. 3 months behind on docking fees, 2 weeks overdue on fuel payments, and his last job had paid barely enough to keep the life support running. The communication panel chirped, displaying an incoming contract. Marcus almost ignored it. Offers these days involve hauling garbage, or worse. But the payment amount made him look twice, then 3 times. Triple standard rate, cash only, pickup coordinates near mining station Omega-7. He knew Omega-7. It's abandoned for 15 years after the mineral deposits ran dry. It's nothing there but empty corridors and scavenger marks. The kind of place where honest work went to die and desperate people made terrible decisions. His finger hovered over the decline button. Triple rate meant trouble. It always did, but the eviction notice stuck to his control panel caught his eye. Its red letters as bright as a warning beacon. Marcus accepted the job. The journey to Omega-7 took 6 hours through asteroid fields that had claimed better ships than his. The station appeared like a metal skeleton against the stars, its broken windows reflecting starlight like dead eyes. Docking Bay 3 showed signs of recent use, though the dust patterns suggested whoever had been here hadn't stayed long. Inside the bay, a figure waited beside what appeared to be a functioning vending machine. The machine's cheerful display advertised emergency supplies when hope runs low. In 12 languages, the woman appeared elderly by any species standards, her silver hair braided with small crystals that caught the light. Her skin had a subtle, blue tint that spoke of worlds far from Earth's yellow sun. She wore flowing robes that seemed impractical for space travel, colored in deep purples and golds that suggested either wealth or insanity. "Are you my transport?" she asked, in accented standard, her voice carrying musical undertones that made Marcus think of wind chimes. "That depends." "You called for passage to the Kepler Trade Hub?" She smiled, and despite her apparent age, her eyes held depths that suggested intelligence beyond human measure. "Indeed, though I suspect our journey may prove more interesting than either of us expects." Marcus gestured toward his ship. "Fair warning, the accommodations aren't luxury class. The gravity generator has moods. The food processor thinks everything should taste like chicken. The AI has developed what I can only describe as a personality disorder. How delightful. I haven't experienced authentic rustic travel in decades." They crossed into the Wanderer. The ship's AI immediately perked up. "Warning, alien life form detected. Scanning for hostile intent. Scan complete. Threat level, grandmother with cookies." "Ignore him," Marcus said quickly. "AI thinks he's funny. Artificial intelligence detection and emergency navigation." "System," the AI corrected, "and I am funny. My humor subroutines are top of the line." The woman laughed, a sound like silver bells in a gentle breeze. "What a charming companion." "I'm Elder Vashti, though most simply call me grandmother." Marcus helped her secure her single travel bag, noting its weight suggested either very dense packing or items heavier than they appeared. Marcus Holt, captain pilot, and apparently taxi service for mysterious passengers. Mystery adds spice to life, don't you think? Before Marcus could respond, proximity alarms screamed through the ship. 3 vessels materialized from behind, the station's bulk, their hulls painted with symbols that made his blood run cold. Skull and crossbones adapted for space, universal sign of pirates. "Well," Vashti said calmly, settling into the passenger seat as if arriving for afternoon tea, "this should be educational." The lead pirate ship opened communication channels. "Unknown vessel, prepared to be boarded. Surrender your cargo and passengers, and we might let you keep breathing." Marcus's hands flew over the controls, but the Wanderer's engines were no match for military-grade pursuit craft. A tractor beam locked onto his hull, invisible chains that held them fast. Any suggestions, grandmother? Marcus asked, desperation. Creeping into his voice, Vashti reached into her travel bag and withdrew what looked like an ornate music box. Perhaps it's time for a little family magic. A shoe opened the box, and space around them exploded into chaos. Royal revelations, the energy field that erupted from Vashti's device, turned space itself into something resembling thick honey. The pirate ships struggled against the golden substance that seemed to slow time around their hulls, their weapons. Firing uselessly into the crystalline barrier, Marcus stared in amazement as the Wanderer slipped free like a fish through water, while their pursuers remained trapped in the temporal field. What in the 7 systems was that? Family heirloom, Vashti replied, closing the music box with a satisfied smile. Zeltharian technology tends to be rather dramatic. Zeltharian. Marcus's stomach dropped. Everyone in known space had heard of the Zeltharian Empire, ancient, powerful, and notoriously protective of their secrets. As in the empire that controls half the Outer Rim? The very same. Now, I believe our destination has changed. Please set course for Zeltharia Prime. The journey to the heart of the Empire took 18 hours through hyperspace lanes that Marcus had never been cleared to use. When they dropped back into normal space, the sight before him defied comprehension. Zeltharia Prime hung like a jewel against the cosmic dark. Its surface swirled with clouds that shifted between silver and deep blue. Orbital stations the size of cities surrounded the planet, connected by streams of light that pulsed like arteries. Ships moved in perfect formation, their designs organic and beautiful in ways that made human engineering look clumsy by comparison. Docking. Bay 1, Vashti instructed, as they approached the largest orbital platform. Marcus's mouth went dry. Bay 1 is restricted to Imperial family only. Yes, I know. The docking bay opened like a flower blooming, revealing an interior that gleamed with polished metals and flowing water features. As the Wanderer settled onto the landing platform, Marcus saw the honor guard waiting. 20 warriors in ceremonial armor knelt as Vashti descended the ramp. Their synchronized voices echoed through the chamber. "Welcome home, Empress Mother." Marcus's legs went numb. "Empress, what now?" Vashti turned back with that same gentle smile. "Did I forget to mention that? How careless of me?" The throne room materialized around them through transport technology that Marcus couldn't begin to understand. Banners displaying stellar cartography hung from pillars that seemed to be carved from single crystals. Court officials in elaborate robes whispered among themselves, their eyes fixed on Marcus with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. On the far wall, carved in script that hurt to look at directly, ancient law proclaimed the reward for saving royal blood, marriage to a member of the royal line, or transformation into garden fertilizer for refusing. The roses particularly thrive on human-based nutrients. A court official explained helpfully. Before Marcus could process this threat fully, the throne room doors exploded open. She entered like a storm-given form, dark hair flowing behind her. As she strode across the chamber with predatory grace, her skin held the same blue undertones as the Empress. But on her it looked like ocean depths under starlight. She was beautiful in a way that made Marcus forget how to breathe properly. Tall and athletic, she moved with the fluid confidence of someone trained in combat. Her eyes blazed with intelligence and something that might have been annoyance as she approached the throne. "Grandmother," she said, her voice carrying authority that made hardened warriors step back. "Please tell me you haven't done what I think you've done." Princess Zara, Vashti replied with obvious delight. "Meet your betrothed, Captain Marcus." Holt, the Princess Zara, turned those blazing eyes on Marcus, and he felt like a specimen under intense study. "Let me understand this correctly. You rescued my grandmother from pirates." "I think she rescued herself, actually. I just flew the ship." A smile tugged at the corner of Zara's mouth before disappearing. Modest. How refreshing. She gestured to the carved law on the wall. "Ancient tradition demands reward for saving royal blood. That reward, unfortunately, is me." Unfortunately, her expression hardened. "I am the heir to an empire that spans 17 systems. I command fleets that could reduce planets to dust. I have dedicated my life to protecting my people from threats you cannot imagine." She stepped closer, and Marcus caught a scent like ocean spray and exotic flowers. "I do not have time for romance, marriage, or playing house with some cargo pilot who happened to be in the right place at the right time." "Well," Marcus said, finding his voice, "when you put it like that, you make it sound so appealing." Several court officials gasped. No one spoke to Princess Zara with sarcasm. No one except Marcus, apparently, who seemed to have left his survival instincts somewhere in hyperspace. Zara stared at him for a long moment, then threw back her head and laughed. Out! The sound transformed her face, making her look younger and infinitely more approachable. "Oh, grandmother," she said, still chuckling. "You certainly know how to pick them." Arranged hearts. The media circus began immediately. Within hours of the betrothal announcement, news crews from across the Empire descended on Zeltheria Prime like hungry birds. Marcus found himself thrust into a world of formal wear, choreographed appearances, and constant scrutiny. "Stop fidgeting," Zara hissed as they prepared for their third interview of the day. She looked devastating in a gown that shifted from deep blue to silver as she moved, but her smile held all the warmth of deep space. "Easy for you to say. You grew up with this madness?" Marcus tugged at his formal jacket, borrowed from the royal wardrobe and tailored by people who apparently thought he needed to look like a decorated military officer. They had developed in routine over the past 2 weeks. Public appearances where they played the perfect couple, complete with carefully scripted answers about destiny and love at first sight. Private moments where Zara outlined exactly how she planned to maintain their arrangement without it interfering with her duties. "Remember," she said as the cameras went live, "we met, felt an instant connection, and knew we were meant to be together. Keep it simple." The interviewer, an enthusiastic badazoid with too many teeth, leaned forward eagerly. "Princess Zara, tell us about the moment you first saw Captain Holt. Was it truly love at first sight?" Zara's smile never wavered, but Marcus caught the slight tightening around her eyes. "The moment I saw Marcus, I knew he was different. He looked at me not as a princess, but as a woman. It was ... refreshing. And you, Captain? What was your first thought when you realized you had won the heart of the Empire's most eligible princess?" Marcus opened his mouth to deliver the prepared response about honor and destiny. What came out instead was the truth. Terror, mostly. "Have you seen her when she's angry? Yesterday she threatened to feed me to something called quantum sharks, because I left a coffee cup on her laboratory table." The studio fell silent. Even the badazoid stopped grinning. "But," Marcus continued, "and maybe it was the way the studio lights caught the subtle blue in Zara's skin, or the memory of her genuine laughter. I've never met anyone who challenges me to be better. It's not richer or more successful. Just ... better. Like maybe the best version of myself might actually be worth something." Zara turned to stare at him, and for the first time since they'd met, her composure cracked. Something raw and vulnerable flickered across her face. Before she could stop it, before he could apologize for going off script, she grabbed his face and kissed him. Not a diplomatic kiss or a camera-friendly peck, the kind of kiss that made the studio monitors fog up and caused Aiden, watching from the green room, to announce vital signs elevated. Pupil dilation detected. Probability of genuine affection, 73%. When they finally broke apart, Marcus felt like his brain had been rebooted. Zara's lips were slightly swollen, and she looked as shocked as he felt. "Well, the interviewer said, fanning himself with his note cards, "I think that answers our questions quite thoroughly." Later, in the private transport back to the palace, they sat in silence. Marcus replayed the kiss in his mind, trying to understand what had happened. Zara stared out the window at the passing cityscape, her expression unreadable. "That was good television," she finally said. "Right, television." Marcus picked up a stylus from the console, fidgeting with it. Very convincing performance. Her voice was carefully neutral. They lapsed into uncomfortable silence. while the transport glided through the capital's traffic patterns. Below them, the city sparkled with bioluminescent architecture that pulsed in rhythm with the planet's natural electromagnetic field. "I need to tell you something," Zara said suddenly. Marcus looked up from the stylus he'd been unconsciously bending. "If this is about the kiss I chose you—" The words tumbled out like she was ripping off a bandage. "Not randomly, not because you saved my grandmother. I studied hundreds of profiles, ran probability matrices, analyzed psychological patterns. I knew you'd be at that station. I knew you'd take the job." Marcus felt the universe tilt sideways. "You what?" She pulled up a holographic display from her personal device showing his entire life in data points. Employment history, psychological evaluations, even his coffee preferences. I needed someone with specific qualities. Intelligence without arrogance, courage without recklessness. Someone who had been betrayed and understood the value of loyalty. The stylus snapped in Marcus's hands, just like everyone else. There's always an angle, always a plan for good old Marcus. It's not. No, I get it. He backed toward the transport door, even though they were hundreds of feet above the ground. Why tell the Mark what the game is? It's much easier to just move the pieces around. The betrayal cut deeper than it should have. For 2 weeks, he'd started to believe that maybe this was real. Maybe someone could actually want him for who he was, not what he could provide. "Congratulations, princess. You got your perfect puppet." Activated the transport's emergency stop and disembarked at the next platform, leaving Zara alone with her carefully constructed plans crumbling around her. Bonds of trust, the 30-day trial period expired at midnight. Neither of them mentioned it, but the weight of unspoken decisions hung heavy in the recycled air of the palace corridors. Marcus spent the hours leading up to the deadline in the Wanderer's cargo bay, ostensibly checking systems, but really just avoiding the choice he'd have to make. At 12:01, proximity alarms screamed across Seltharia Prime. Marcus watched from his ship's viewport as Admiral Corvin's fleet materialized, out of hyperspace. Hundreds of vessels, each one bristling with weapons that looked like they belonged in a nightmare. The lead ship was a massive dreadnought that seemed to devour light itself. "Temporal acceleration weapons detected," Aiden announced with unusual gravity. "Chronos cannons. They age whatever they hit into dust. Planetary survival probability, 12%. Marcus's hands found the controls automatically. He could run. The trial period was over. No legal obligation to stay, no contract binding him to a world that had treated him like a useful tool. The engines hummed to life. But on his communications display, he could see Zara coordinating the planet's defenses. Her face was set and grim. Determination, even as the tactical readouts painted the situation in shades of hopeless. She would fight anyway, Marcus realized. Even against impossible odds, she would stand between her people and destruction. "Damn it," he muttered, powering down the engines. "Language, dear boy." Dashti materialized in his passenger's seat as if she'd always been there. No disguise this time, just a grandmother in flowing robes with eyes that held the weight of centuries, though I suppose the situation warrants it. "How did you old woman's prerogative?" She offered him a plate of cookies that somehow smelled like earth. Like his mother's kitchen before the divorce, and the debt and everything falling apart. Snickerdoodles. My late husband's recipe. He was human, you know? Marcus took a cookie. Numbly, it tasted like childhood and safety and all the things he'd stopped believing in. "He was broken when I met him," Vashti continued. "Running from 3 failed businesses and a gambling debt that technically classified him as a small planetary economy. I didn't choose him despite his flaws, dear. I chose him because of them." She lied to me. She told you the truth. Rather different from lying, wouldn't you say? Vashti bit into her own cookie. Perfect people make terrible partners. They never need you. But someone who's been broken and chooses to love anyway, that's real strength. How do you know I love her? Because you're still here. She gestured toward the tactical display showing the approaching fleet.
Ow!
The trial period ended 14 minutes ago. You're free to leave. Yet here you sit, watching her prepare to fight impossible odds In breaking your own heart because you think you don't deserve to be chosen? She patted his cheek with a hand that smelled like cinnamon and starlight. My granddaughter didn't manipulate you, Marcus Holt. She chose you. There's a difference if you're brave enough to see it. Outside, the first Kronos cannon fired. A beam of concentrated time hit one of Zeltharia's outer defense platforms. Marcus watched in horror as the Metal Age centuries and seconds rust, spreading like cancer before the entire structure crumbled to dust. Admiral Corvin's voice filled the communications channels, smooth as poisoned honey. Princess Cathrel, this is unnecessary. Surrender your planet's defensive codes and your people need not suffer. Zara's response crackled back without hesitation. Counteroffer. Go to hell. Another temporal beam lanced out. Another platform. Died of old age in moments. Marcus looked at the cookie plate, at Ididen's blinking status lights, at his reflection in the dark viewport. Scruffy, tired, scared. Out. Not hero material. Not prince material. Just Marcus Holt, failed businessman and successful coward. But maybe the kind of man who could love someone brave enough to choose him, flaws and all. Aiden, he said quietly, remember that energy field thing from Vashti's music box? Is any chance? You recorded the frequency signatures? Temporal displacement field recorded and analyzed? Replication possible, but would require significant power expenditure. How significant? Ship's reactor would overload in approximately 4 minutes. Probability of survival, negligible. Marcus looked at the approaching fleet, then at Vashti's knowing smile. Let's go save my fiancé. Love's final stand, the Wanderer screamed toward Admiral Corvin's fleet like a comet with delusions of grandeur. Marcus pushed the aging ship beyond its design limits while Aiden cheerfully announced their approaching doom. 17 weapon systems. Acquiring target lock, the AI reported. Shall I play your funeral dirge? I have several compositions downloaded. Not helping. Marcus threw the ship into a spiraling dive beneath a cruiser's hull, using its bulk as temporary cover. A Kronos beam seared past close enough to age his coffee cup into archaeological remains. His communicator crackled to life. Marcus. What the hell are you doing? Zara's voice carried panic beneath the authority. Saving our planet. Pulled up sharply, narrowly avoiding a collision with a fighter squadron. You said R, by the way. That was nice. This isn't the time for an explosion. Cut her off as another of Zeltharia's orbital platforms bloomed into fire. Through his viewport, Marcus could see the planet's surface beginning to glow as temporal weapons hit the upper atmosphere. Marcus, please. The word broke something in her voice. Princess Zara didn't plead. She commanded, demanded, occasionally threatened with creative violence, but she didn't beg. Can't do that. Marcus spotted Corvin's flagship, a massive vessel that looked like someone had weaponized a nightmare. Remember that prototype you've been working on? The one in your lab marked absolutely do not touch? Silence stretched across the channel. Then you didn't. Your security really is terrible. One DNA scanner and I just held up that coffee mug you've been using. Marcus patted his jacket pocket where the vial of experimental nanovirus sat warm against his chest. Zara's latest project. Designed to eat through any known metal alloy in minutes? That's not a plan, she said. That's suicide with optimistic scheduling. I prefer to think of it as aggressively romantic problem solving. A new voice cut into their channel, cultured and cold as space itself. Admiral Corvin's face appeared on Marcus's cracked display screen, perfectly preserved features that looked 30 years old and 1,000 years tired. Captain Holt, I've been reviewing your file. Quite the fall from grace, from promising engineer to cargo hauling. Tell me, does it bother you that others built empires on your innovations while you struggle to pay docking fees? Marcus banked hard as another temporal beam turned debris into cosmic dust. You know what? It used to. Kept me awake at night, made me bitter at every success story I heard. Then you understand the injustice. I understand that bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people, Marcus interrupted. The universe doesn't keep score, but here's what I learned. The best revenge isn't becoming successful despite them. It's being happy despite them. He cut the communication and aimed directly at Corvin's flagship. Aid in that temporal field. From earlier, can you replicate it? Affirmative. Warning. Power requirements will exceed safe parameters by will explode. Got it. On my mark. Behind them, space erupted into chaos as reinforcements arrived. Prince Octavius's fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Their ships painted with elaborate tentacle designs that would have been comical if they weren't laying down devastating firepower. For love and healthy relationship communication. The prince's voice boomed across all frequencies. What? Marcus nearly collided with a frigate. I have been attending couples therapy, Octavius continued, while his fighters tore through Corvin's escort ships. Dr. Kolosny says I must verbalize my emotional support for family members. On Zeltharia's surface, Vashti stood in the palace. War room, wearing her flowing robes and a utility belt that definitely hadn't come from any grandmother's knitting circle. Around her, 24 elderly Zeltharian women dropped their teacups and pulled out military-grade weapons with practiced ease. Knitting circle, execute pattern, protective grandmother. Vashti announced sweetly. Marcus reached the flagship's shield perimeter as space around him turned into a war zone. Zara's voice filled his ship one last time. Marcus, I need you to know. I chose you because you're exactly who I needed. Not a prince or a hero. Someone brave enough to love an impossible woman. I love you too, he said, and realized it was true. Try not to blow up the planet while I'm gone, Aiden. Now. The temporal field erupted from the Wanderer like the universe's worst case of cosmic indigestion. Energy barriers spread instantly, merging with Corvin's shields and creating a writhing mass of confused physics. Marcus punched through both, the ship crashing into the flagship's hull with all the grace of a drunk meteor. He tumbled through twisted metal into the enemy corridors, clutching the nanovirus in AIDN's portable core. Behind him, the Wanderers. Reactor went critical, taking half of Corvin's ship with it. Structural integrity compromised, Aiden observed from his portable housing. Also, you are bleeding, just a flesh wound. Marcus struggled to his feet. Following emergency lighting toward the command center, he found Corvin in his private chamber, surrounded by the temporal stabilization equipment that kept him alive. The Admiral looked up as Marcus entered. Preserved features showing surprise for the first time in decades. You're too late, Captain. My weapons will reduce your princess's world too. Marcus smashed the virus vial against the nearest console. The nanoagents spread like silver fire, eating through every metal surface they touched. Within minutes, Corvin's life support systems began failing, his perfectly preserved appearance flickering like a dying hologram. She chose me, Marcus said as the Admiral aged rapidly back to his actual centuries. Flaws and all. The flagship's destruction sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet. Without their leader and his temporal weapons, Admiral Corvin's forces retreated into hyperspace, leaving behind only debris and the echo of their defeat. Marcus floated in an escape pod, watching Zeltharian rescue ships approach when Zara's face appeared on his communicator. She was crying, actual tears streaming down her perfect features. You magnificent, impossible, wonderful fool, she said. When I get you back, I'm going to kiss you senseless and then never let you leave my sight again. Promise. I promise everything, she whispered. Forever if you'll have me. As the rescue ship's tractor beam caught his pod, Marcus smiled and thought about how sometimes the best things in life chose you back, even when you never thought you deserved them. The wedding was held 3 months later, broadcast across 17 systems. But the moment Marcus treasured most came during their private vows, when Zara looked into his eyes and said, I chose you not, despite your broken pieces, but because of how beautifully you've learned to shine through the cracks. In the vast cosmos, where cargo pilots could become princes, an impossible love could save worlds. That seemed like the most human truth of all.